Hello, I'm Richard Ong, partner of GST from RSM. The Singapore government has introduced various grants, tax incentives and rebates to encourage businesses to go overseas. Companies have launched eagerly into overseas market, looking into how much profits, margins, 10%, 20%, 30% they can take. However, inadequate research and understanding of the markets often leave these companies in the red. This is because lack of knowledge with different business practices. For example, do clients prefer to meet face-to-face, via emails, or prefer just to do a call? Restricted bank support. Banks may not know you, they will not grant you a line. Unfamiliar regulatory and GST requirements results in companies acquiring loss even before making a profit. The GST rules relating to goods movement and its ownership are important, whether you order goods online, whether via fax, via email. While GST for exports from Singapore are usually taken into consideration, businesses don't think about the GST of the respective overseas market, as it is perceived to be outside the scope of Singapore GST, and hence GST requirement in that overseas market may be overlooked. For businesses working on consignment and trading models especially, the GST place of supply rule for goods in the overseas market tend to be critical because it establishes whether one needs to pay import GST, one needs to be GST registered, or one needs to be charging GST in that overseas market. When a customer places an order, the Singapore business export goods on a delivery duty paid terms. In layman, it's called DDP. Based on this shipping arrangement, the Singapore business is responsible for import clearance at the goods destination country. This means that the Singapore business will be responsible to get the goods cleared from customs and deliver them to the premise of the customer. Such shipping arrangement includes payment of import GST and duty at the goods destination country, or what we call GDC, as goods ownership is only transferred to the customer upon reaching a named place in the GDC. Where such factors are not considered, the Singapore business will bear the additional cost should there be no import GST claiming mechanism in the GDC. Consequently, this will translate into little or no margins from this sale. In a consignment business model, goods are exported from Singapore to the GDC for storage, assuming largely it's not a free trade zone or a bonded warehouse. When a customer places an order for the goods, it will be delivered within the GDC. Since most GST in the GDC rely on where the goods are shipped from and shipped to, the Singapore business must take note, as it could potentially be liable for GST registration in the GDC should revenue from such sales arrangement exceed a specified registration threshold. This could mean that late GST registration would result in hefty fines for the companies who have not considered this. For this business model, upon receiving an order, goods are procured and manufactured in the overseas market and thereafter shipped within the same overseas market. GST registration liability in that overseas market must be taken into consideration for such sales arrangement, assuming revenue would exceed the specified GST registration threshold. Even if revenue does not exceed the GST registration threshold, the Singapore business needs to consider the inability to claim GST incurred on buying goods locally from suppliers in the overseas market.